Hey, work from homers, Adam Schrader here. We love bringing you this podcast, and thousands of you have proven that it's been helpful for you. But since time and online storage space aren't free, Naresh and I wanted to come to you personally to ask for your financial support through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/workfromhomeshow and help support the show. And we appreciate your support at any amount you choose. That's patreon.com/workfromhomeshow. Thanks for your support. Let's get to the show.
Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Work From Home Show. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. I'm Naresh Vissa with
Adam Schrader's still here.
There we go. It's been a while, Adam. We want to thank all of you for joining us. When was the last time we did this? It was earlier this year, I think.
I think it might have been the beginning of the year, yeah.
And we've gotten listener feedback saying, hey, I miss you guys. When are you going to have one of your banter episodes? And here we are, folks. It's the end of the year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And also, Happy New Year, because this is the last episode of the year. And we are going into New Year's 2022. The pandemic is not gone. It's funny, Adam, because whenever we interview guests and I bring up the pandemic, I'm thinking to myself, oh, we're not going to post this episode for another 6 months. And I always think, oh, the pandemic's going to be over by then. This is going to be an old episode. And then, boom, here we are almost 2 years later. And the pandemic is as strong as it's been in March 2020.
Yeah. I mean, but on the plus side, it doesn't seem to be as... it's not as deadly anymore, so we got that.
It's not, but as far as working from home goes and going into an office...
Oh, yeah, that's still going strong.
So that's still going very, very strong. Let's start the discussion today, Adam, by talking about our show. I've got good news for our listeners. We are renewing the show again. We did say last year that we were renewing for season 2 and 3. And I'm proud to announce that we're renewing not just for season 3, but for seasons 4 and 5. So we are going to be around for the next few years.
You ain't getting rid of us.
Nope. And if you have any questions, guest suggestions, anything at all, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Email us. We love your feedback. Absolutely love it. So, Adam, let's wrap up this year. Talk about what were your thoughts if we compared 2021 to 2020 as far as the Work From Home Show goes? We obviously went from 3 episodes a week down to 1 episode a week, which I think was a good call.
Yep.
I thought we needed the 3 for the first season. But just what are your overall thoughts? What did you learn? What did you like?
I learned that we're doing well enough that we're getting some big old names coming and being willing to join our show who originally told us no.
You're good. Absolutely right. The guest I would say Joe Namath. Was that who we interviewed?
Theismann.
Joe Theismann. Sorry, Joe Theismann. Is Joe Namath still around?
Yeah, he's alive.
He's alive. Okay.
He's in disgrace because he turns out he's kind of a pervert. But yeah.
We didn't have Joe Namath on the show, but we had Joe Theismann. That was a big get. So was Peter Navarro. That was a huge get. But let's go through our most popular episodes.
Ken Honda, number 1 for the year.
So number 1, I don't think it's surprisingly, but Ken Honda was number 1. And it's not surprising because he's huge in Japan. He's got an international audience, a huge following. So not surprised. Our number 2 most listened to show was Jim Rickards, season 2, episode 3. Jim Rickards. And I want to go back and listen to that episode because if I recall correctly, he was completely wrong about inflation.
Yeah, well,
But hey, that's fine.
you only have to be right once every blue moon to be an economic god.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And by the way, so Ken Honda was number one, and number two was Jim Rickards. Jim Rickards, huge following as well. I've done business with the company he used to work at, Agora Financial, and he's really just exploded. He comes out with a book, and he's selling at least 100,000 copies. Peter Navarro, we had his interview towards the end of the year, so it wasn't as popular because it hasn't been out as long. But his book is doing super well too. So it's just an honor to have guests like this coming to us. And by the way, that was one of the listener questions. We had a listener question, and I'm going to bring up some of these listener questions. We had a listener question from Max asking, are you buddies with Peter Navarro now? And do you think he really believes the stuff he says?
No and yes.
So are we buddies with Navarro? No. Let's put it this way. Well, there's another question from Varun who asked, how'd you score an interview with Peter Navarro? I hate the guy, but it's very impressive that you got him on your show. So let's take these questions one by one. So number one, how'd we score an interview with him? Navarro came out with this book, and he hired a bunch of publicists to promote the book, and he's not turning down really any media. So he's got at least 5 or 6 publicists working for him, reaching out to the mainstream news media, podcasts, you name it. And given our relationship that we've developed and my relationships that I've developed over the last 12 or so years, they reached out and said, hey, Peter Navarro wants to come on your show. I said, heck yeah, let's do it. So that's how we scored an interview with them. So yes, they did reach out to us, because that was another question. Did they reach out to you? Yes, because we're the work from home show. And then, are you guys buddies now? No, not at all. He's done tons of media. Although I was honored because he sounded genuine, Adam. At the end of our interview, he said, thanks for asking really tough questions, because I think he's gotten a lot of softballs from the other interviews he's done.
Yeah, well, I tried not to be soft with him.
And do you think he really believes the stuff he says?
100%.
Absolutely, he does. Just listen to the interview. Listen to the interview, and you'll see that he absolutely does. The fact that he couldn't really give us answers backed by data or evidence showed that he just believes something and doesn't need any evidence to back it up.
Superfluous. Don't need evidence.
Yeah. So that was good questions. Now, Adam, let's move on to this year, because our listeners have been dying to know how this year has been going business-wise, how has working from home been, and how has it been being a stay-at-home dad. So we'll wrap up this episode talking about that, because I think this is going to be the most valuable part, or the most valuable segment that we do this year. What do you think about that?
What do I think about the year?
Well, what we're about to talk about, I think it's going to be the most valuable segment that we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think people love hearing about the actual, we talk to a lot of people about what they're doing in business and kind of how they succeeded. But I mean, when you boil it down to it, we're the work from home show, and people come to us because they're, learning to work from home or wanting to work from home more and wanting to expand on it. So, I mean, hearing from people who actually do it. I mean, a lot of the people we talk with are authors who obviously work from home, but they're not like working from home. And they can kind of tell you how to do some things, but you can't get like your really solid business advice from an author.
Well, let's get business advice from the man of the month, Adam. So I should call you, you're not a legend yet, but I should call you Master Adam, because you had some big changes, both of us really, but let's just say you've hit it bigger. You've had some big changes with your work from home work, your income, your clientele. You're no longer Lil Adam. You're Big Daddy Adam. That's what you are, Big Daddy Adam. So let's talk a little bit about that before we get to the kids, because you're doing extremely well, and I'll let you share, if you want to share vague numbers, you can do that. and what's happened, what's transpired in 2021 as far as your work from home goes.
Yeah, my work from home. Well, the work situation I was in wasn't the most conducive to a happy life. I think that's a fair statement to say.
It wasn't conducive to paying any bills either.
Yeah, no, that part wasn't. Yeah, you have to get paid to pay bills. So this is actually a good thing to talk about, and that is, we've talked a little bit about it before, but when you do work from home, when you do work for yourself, and you have more than one income source, you can fire clients. And so I fired one of my employers, and went and got a new one, and used the network that I'd been able to create to say, I literally just went to a guy I knew and said, hey, I want to keep working in this space. Tell me who I need to meet. And he said, you need to meet this guy. And so he introduced me to that guy. And then I started, had some conversations with him, and he said, yeah, let's give it a whirl. And I'm happier. I'm doing better in business.
A lot better. Okay, if you're not going to be vague with the numbers, I'll be vague with the numbers. I'd say your income has gone up times 8, and you're working less.
Probably working roughly the same. A little bit less. The same.
Okay, let's just say a little bit less.
Yeah.
So your part, 2021, they're dubbing it as the Great Resignation. Whether you're an independent contractor, full-time employee, part-time employee, you are a part of that Great Resignation. I was a part of that Great Resignation because I did the same thing, fired a client. And look, we have many different clients, but let's just say this was a big client who we fired, and we also replaced that client with another big client. And we're doing, when I say we, it's not just what I'm doing, but there's also online marketing work we're doing for them, podcasting work that we're doing for them, podcast production work, email marketing work, etc., web work. There's just a lot that we're doing for them. So it was the right move to make. And so, yeah, you're crushing it, Adam. You're crushing it. I'm not there. I got started maybe 2 or 3 months after you, but I'm sure I'll get there someday.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I was willing to take a little bit of a per deal pay cut to do it, because lifestyle over money. If we're being honest, you just gotta. If you're not happy somewhere, even if you make a little bit less somewhere, if your lifestyle's better, then it's worth it. So but then again, I took a little bit less per deal, but I'm doing way more deals. So it comes out in the wash.
It does, and many people out there who are part of this Great Resignation. Look, this is how a free market works. If you're not going to be paid enough, or if you can make more elsewhere to work less, yeah, you're going to leave. And that's why so many people are leaving, whether they're going out on their own, starting their own business, working less, or finding other sources of income to work less, or going to a competitor or getting another job that pays more to work less. That's how the business environment works. I'm sorry. So if you're an employer, you have to, and this ties into the pandemic, because the healthcare space is seeing major shortages from top to bottom.
Yeah, and because they treat their employees like crap.
Well, exactly. To me, it's not the pandemic. This has been going on even before the pandemic, and the pandemic accelerated it. In any other industry, you go to Wall Street, Silicon Valley. When I was on Wall Street 12 years ago, I had really, really good compensation packages. Today, it's way better. So just to give you a quick run through, let's say you get hired by a standard Wall Street bank as a 21-year-old investment banker. Your starting salary is $120,000, $15,000 to $20,000 signing bonus, a $70,000 to $100,000 year-end bonus, plus a corporate credit card, plus a Peloton, plus an iPhone, plus a free laptop computer, free iPad, a free gym membership, maybe most likely a free personal trainer, free Ubers to and from the office, free lunch and dinner if you stay late in the office.
When you stay late.
Yeah.
And the free lunch is so you don't leave the office, let's be honest.
Okay. Well, you get the point, though. You look at this and you're like, wow, like, why would I turn this down? A free vacation getaway for 2 every year. So that's another one. And you're like, wow, this is incredible. Like, I want to work at this company. What do you get? My wife's a doctor. What does she get from her employer? She got a signing bonus. Notice I didn't even say standard benefits or healthcare. I just assumed that's a given.
Yeah.
That's all she got. Just a
Yep.
signing bonus. And now imagine you're a nurse and you don't get a signing bonus, or a tech and you don't get a signing bonus. Why on earth would you stay if you can leave to make more money doing something else? To me, it's an HR issue. It's a recruitment issue. It's if you're a 20-year-old kid in college and you have these Silicon Valley, their comp plans are very similar. The difference between Silicon Valley and Wall Street is Silicon Valley is tech, so it's more work from home oriented, whereas Wall Street, the moment this pandemic's over, they're going to ask you to come back into the office.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So that's a difference with Silicon Valley. Very, very similar comp. And if you're 20 years old, it's like, do I go to nursing school? Starting salary, $60,000 with no perks? Or do I go work at a Silicon Valley company with all these perks? It's a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, you look at it and there's two reasons people stay. There's financial reasons and then there's culture reasons. And healthcare doesn't have culture anymore. They don't care. But they're also not willing to... They've started doing the pay thing a little bit, but it's not nearly enough to make up for the fact that working in healthcare right now is miserable.
The other thing with pay, I think all healthcare has to do is if there's a surge, like in investment banking, for example, if there's a surge in deal flow, like all of a sudden there's M&A activity and there's a surge, guess what's going to happen to the people working on those deals? Guess how they're compensated? Their year-end bonuses becomes fat, and they're incentivized to stay in the office. They want to stay in the office. They want to work on these deals. And I know some people in private practice, and they say, look, I run my practice like a business. During the COVID surge in Florida in August, September of this year, he said he incentivizes people and paid them $10,000 to $15,000 a month just in bonus. And his doctors and nurse practitioners were fighting for shifts. You know, I'll take this shift, I'll take that shift. Whereas other people I know, like my wife and her former employer, sorry, you get this tiny little bonus. Everyone gets it, you know, and it's not based on patients or anything. It's just like a year-end, like Christmas type of bonus. And it's tiny, small fraction of what this guy was doling out every month. So it's an HR thing. It's a business. It's a business problem. It's not a pandemic problem or an unvaccinated problem or anything like that. Any other business, I'd love to have more. I'm sure, Adam, you'd love to have more people hitting you up wanting to buy houses.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have.
I'd love it.
So, yeah, wanted to talk about that because both of us have had those changes, and we'll wrap up this episode talking about a huge change in the Vissa household.
Huge.
And I'm going to ask you some questions because this is an important topic, Adam. So I took over in February. I took over full-time childcare duties for my son. Full-time.
Yep.
I should say 95% of the time because I hired a part-time nanny who comes in 4 hours a week. She does the laundry. She cooks us food, which lasts us 2 to 3 days. She disciplines our son. So that's helped a lot. Just those 4 hours has helped a lot. But I figured out how to take care of a 1-year-old while working from home, recording this podcast, doing all the other things that I do. And part of the reason was because, let's just put it this way, we don't need to get into all the details, but it was time for grandma and grandpa to move on with life, and time for mommy and daddy to actually be mommy and daddy. Let's just put it that way. That was in the best interest of the family, of the marriage, and the child. So we'll leave
parties involved.
All parties involved. We'll leave it at that. But I get a very common question from people because we're men, Adam. We're not women, and it's still not very common for men to stay at home and to work from home on top of that while taking care of the child. So how did I do this? Number one, well, you know what? let's hold off on it because I want to ask you a few questions. I want to do a quick lightning round with you, and then we'll break down these questions and talk about them. What do you say about that?
All right.
You ready for this lightning round, Adam?
Ready.
All right. Here we go. Adam, how many kids do you have?
4.
Are they all boys, all girls, or a mix?
All boy.
Have you been a stay-at-home dad for all 4 children?
Yes.
So even with the first child through the 4th child, you've always been stay-at-home? Never had to work in an office?
Nope. Not since they were born.
Did you ever hire a nanny?
No, we hired a house cleaner for a while who would come every other week to do bathrooms and kitchen.
So that's not a nanny. That's a house cleaner. So
yeah, that's
never
the
hired...
only exterior people we've done.
Wow, that's impressive. We're too lazy for that. We have a house cleaner, a landscaper. The nanny cooks for us, does our laundry.
Okay, we have a landscape person.
Pesticide, company, etc. But anyway, let's continue with the lightning round. Did grandparents, did they ever come help out over an extended period of time? I'm not talking like you go on a 5-day vacation or like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
No.
Never.
So
after your first kid was born, after the 3rd and 4th kids, since they're twins, you never had grandparents come to help out with anything?
No, after Isaac was born, who's our first, I think my mother-in-law came in for like 3 or 4 days, and my parents came up for 3 or 4 days, and that was about it.
Wow, that's impressive. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm only talking about let's just say the first 2 years of each child, overall, how would you, or just forget about it, just overall as a stay-at-home dad, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most difficult and 1 being the easiest, what would you rate the level of difficulty doing this?
Overall, it was pretty easy, but right after the twins were born, for the first 2 years, that was rough.
So that was children 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And the first 2, so you had 4 kids by that point. And by the way, let's ask another question. Did you send your kids off to school?
They did. Once they were 2, they did 2 days a week at a parent's day out. So for 4 hours a day, they would be at 4 hours a day on Tuesday and Thursday. They'd be there, but all 4 were never in at the same time.
So you never permanently sent them away to like a daycare or
No.
Montessori. And of course, if you've been listening to this show, you homeschool your 4 kids. Also,
Yes.
You're not just a stay-at-home dad, you homeschool them.
Although at the beginning of 2022, it will become 3. Isaac's going to middle school.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's later though. So
Yeah.
he's now what, 11?
Yeah.
So you did 11 years all by yourself. Your wife is the one who worked or brought in the bulk of the income, correct? And was out of the home.
Yes.
So you just said that you manned down the house, 4 children, homeschooled, no help from your parents, no help from a nanny. Didn't just send your kids off to school or daycare. And on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that number be? Where 10 is the most difficult?
Go with 3.
Wow. The reason why we're having this conversation is because our listeners, many people I know, have come to us saying, you inspire me to do what you're doing, to be a stay-at-home dad or to even be a stay-at-home mom. And you guys make it sound so easy. And I'll tell you, it is daunting. When I took over the task in February of this year, take care of my son and do all this work and man down the house, yes, I was not discouraged, but it seemed like I said, a daunting task. And I'll just share some keys. Number 1 is structure. That's building a schedule for you and I only have 1 kid, you had 4. So I'll let you talk about that a little more. But with 1 kid, my kid had no structure his entire first year. No structure. It's just he eats whenever he wants. He sleeps whenever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
You put a structure in and you discipline your child and don't spoil it. Your child, spoiling is not buying a bunch of toys. Spoiling is running over every time they cry or faint cry and picking them up and walking them around and basically showing them constant attention. That's spoiling, because you're hurting the child at the end of the day by doing that. When they're not able to eat on their own, hold their own bottle, pick up their own food, walk on their own, they need mommy and daddy to be with them every step of the way. Don't do that to your child, because you will not get any work done. My kid now, he knows how daddy is. He doesn't spoil, and he knows when daddy's on his computer, he needs to play. He can go 3 hours straight. This is a 1-year-old. He can go 3 hours straight playing on his own.
Well, he's almost 2, right?
He's almost 2, yeah. But even when he was, after he turned 1 and I took over, this is how he was. It was super easy to get my work done. And it's just him and me, right? Again, it's different with 4 kids, especially 4 boys, I'm sure. That leads me to the next thing, which is food. I notice, at least with my kid, this is probably the case with most kids, when they're very well fed, they will play by themselves and be happy for at least 2.5 hours. So feed your children a lot, as much as they can take, and they will be very happy. My son mostly pouts when he's hungry. So feed them and organize your schedule and structure it such that you feed them before like a big meeting or a podcast recording, and then they can just play around and have a good time on their own. Overall, continuing with the tips, sleep is, again, very important. At 2 years old or at 1 year old, you want at least 13 hours of sleep a day. So initially it was 2 naps during the day. We weaned that off when he was about 1.5 to 1 nap during the day. So he'll sleep. I had to crib. It took 6 months to crib train him because he was not sleep trained. So it was a lot of waking up in the middle of the night, a lot of crying, letting him cry it out. And now I literally just drop him off in the crib. He knows it's time to sleep. He goes to sleep. He'll sleep for 12 hours straight, or not, about 11 hours straight, and wake up at sunlight. He knows no one's coming to get him until there's daylight. So he doesn't cry or nothing. He'll just wait in his crib or put himself back to sleep. Nap, same thing. And again, the nanny helped out with this a lot as well. But nap, same thing. Just drop him off in the crib, and he'll sleep for around 2.5 hours. And when he wakes up, he just waits. He knows mom, daddy, and nanny, and mommy, or whoever has a camera to look at, and that will come get him within 10 to 15 minutes. He knows it. So you do those things, and hey, this is an amazing age. This is like the easy age. I would say from 3 months to 2 years, easy age. Because after 2 years, and you would know this more than me because my son's not 2 yet, but after 2 years, they become a human, a real person who can not listen to what you say and who can talk back to you and do bad things, break things, and do bad things around the house. But overall, it's been amazing. I love it. It was a good business year also. But Adam, any thoughts you want to share about your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, by the time Isaac was 1.5 or 2.
Isaac is what, your oldest?
My oldest, yeah. By the time he was 1.5 or 2, he would play on his own, and like I would put his brother, like I always rocked the kids to sleep for their naps because I just enjoyed doing it. And so he would just literally sit outside the room looking at books, and I could kind of watch him. And he'd just sit there and read books. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep for a little bit sometimes, and he just kind of kept on. And so, I mean, you got to treat them like they're capable of doing the things that you want them to do. I mean, you also have to be reasonable in what you expect them to do. But if you treat kids as if they're capable of doing it, more often than not, they'll show you they can do it.
Absolutely.
We underestimate what children are capable of.
It goes back to structure and discipline. By discipline, I don't mean beating your child. I don't mean yelling at them. Although, I mean, I'm sure you've yelled at your children, Adam. Right now, I can only count on maybe one hand how many times I've yelled at my son. He's not 2 yet. And most of those times were in the middle of the night when I was in like a deep sleep. And he woke up and was crying because he wanted daddy to take him out of the crib. And this is when we were doing the sleep trick. So if you take that away, maybe like I can count on two fingers how many times I yelled at him, and I felt guilty both times. Um, but overall, you discipline them, and look, it's going to take a few days. These kids, the great thing is they adapt quickly, and they know, hey, grandma does this, grandpa does this, mommy does this, daddy does this, and they act differently, just like any other human being. I mean, I have friends. I talk about different topics with one friend versus what I talk about with you, and may talk differently with another friend who's from another country, and kids are no different, or babies are no different.
Absolutely not.
The bottom line is, I just want to stress that you too, if you're listening and you're concerned about having a child, because the latest statistic, I don't know if you've seen this, Adam, but babies are not being born in the United States and worldwide
Nope.
since March, or I should say since January 2021. We've seen a huge depopulation, not just from the pandemic, but from the lack of babies being born. So right now is as good a time as ever to have a baby, because the competition is going to be much. If you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, he talks about when Bill Gates was born, when a lot of these professional athletes are born, either the years or the time of the year when they were born. It can give you a significant leg up.
Seriously. That was I love his books.
Yeah, they're amazing. And right now is one of those times, because there just isn't as much competition. And when there are fewer babies around, when there are fewer people in their cohort and their grade levels and their classes who are as talented, it's going to make it easier. Not that that's what I want. I'd want the best, and I'd want my children to be with the best of the best, but don't hold off on it. And we had a guest, that episode's going to air a little later, but he talked about the IVF industry and freezing your eggs, and how that's a big marketing. They've put in a lot of marketing budget into telling young couples or even young women who are single, hey, you don't need to have children right now. Just freeze your eggs and move on with life. And when you're like 40 years old, you can figure it out later. And the guest talked about how this is just terrible for society. Well, look, that's certainly added to this issue, but it goes back to the point of, if you're afraid of childcare, if you're afraid of babies, I mean, when I had my first, I was afraid of holding him. It took me a day to figure out how to hold him properly. Let's put it that way. He was just so tiny, so small. And a lot of people feel that way. Don't be afraid. You're listening right now. You can do it. You keep listening to our show. Take these tips that we shared, take them to heart, and you will realize, man, it's actually like a 3 out of 10. And I would say it's a 2 out of 10. I think you think it's a 3 out of 10 because you have 4 kids and you have older kids. So it actually gets harder as they get older. But I would say it's more like a 1 out of 10 as far as difficulty goes. It's not a 10 for sure. I would say it's a 1 if it's one child, maybe a 2. I heard girls are easier than boys at around 2 years old, or even 1.5 years old. So yeah, I'd say 1 or 2 on the level of difficulty.
Yeah, I can't argue with you much there. We've set standards and held the kids to it, and we hold ourselves to similar standards, and so it's all about just consistency and doing that.
Completely agree. To all our listeners, if you have any questions or thoughts about what we've talked about, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. You can contact us through there or email us hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Check out all our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on several other social media platforms. Leave us a review. We've been giving out my free book, or it's not a free book. We've been giving out my book, 50 Shades of Marketing, completely free of charge. So you can continue to, or not continue, but you can get on our mailing list, and we will continue to send that book out to you guys. Adam, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Nope, other than you can do it.
You can absolutely do it. Do not be afraid of babies. Do not be afraid of being parents. There are countless studies out there. Just go on Wikipedia, the greatest source ever, right? Go on Wikipedia, go on Google. You can see the benefits that children get by having stay-at-home dads or just having active dads. There are all sorts of studies out there Yes, even more than mom. We've done a few episodes on this, but the man, the father, makes a big difference in a child's life. So, for whatever reason, just off the top of my head, what I remember reading, a father who stays at home with his child until the child is about 5 years old, so that's about kindergarten age, um, there's less of a chance of suicide, less of a chance of drug and substance abuse, less of a chance or a greater chance of doing well in graduating from high school, doing well on standardized tests. Uh, so this obviously, all this ties into self-esteem and confidence issues. So bottom line is definitely worth it. And if you can make money while doing it from home and not miss a beat, this is a perfect time. Right now is absolutely the perfect time. So thank you, listeners, for sticking with us. All 24,000 plus of you. We've gone from 18. How about that, Adam?
Moving on up.
Moving on up to 24,000. Thank you for sticking with us. We hope you have a very happy holiday, a happy new year. And until next year, keep on working from home.